This is part 4 of lesson 5.5. We're just going to finish up the note by doing the part B of the problem from the coffee shop. So we're just going to do our equations and then sketch our graph quickly. So remember that we had found the maximum value was $6.48 with a price of $1.80 per mug. Now we need to find the equation in both the standard and the vertex form. So we already know some information here. So I'm going to start off with the vertex form. What we know for sure is that our HK is $1.80, 1.8, and $6.48. So we know that. And so what we can do is we can plug that into our equation. Y is equal to A x minus 1.80 plus 6.48. And so now using any of the points that we have from the previous example there, we can find our A value. We have a 0 here. We have a 0 is 52.0. Or we could do negative 20.0. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to choose 52.0. You'll choose 20.0 and see if you get the same answer. You should. Negative 20.0 versus 52.0. So now I think I made an error here. Let's go back and check. So the mistake I made here, and it's a common mistake that's often made, is this is not the x value of my vertex. The x value of my vertex is 16. I was able to spot that because quickly mathematically I said I should have the same answers as 52 and negative 20, and 1.8 won't get me that. So 16 will. So again, make sure you choose the proper value. This is your h value. This 1.8 here was a price after I put the h value in here, so be careful there. Common mistake. So I'll put my 16 in here. Squared plus 6.48. I'm going to use point 52.0 to find A. So that's going to mean that 0 is equal to A times 52 minus 16 squared plus 6.48. I'll put that in my calculator. So 52 minus 16 is 36. Let's square that. And then we get 0 is equal to 1296 A plus 6.48. We can isolate for A by sending 6.48 to the other side. We're doing the inverse operations. We get 6.48 is equal to, negative 6.48 is equal to 1296A. And then afterwards we can divide by 1296A on both sides to get A. Or by 1296 on both sides to get A. Divide, divide. 1296 here. And so we get A is equal to 6.48 divided by 1296. We get A is equal to negative 0.5. So we know our parabola is going to open from the bottom. But now that we have our A, we know that, therefore, y is equal to negative 0.5 or negative half, same thing, multiplied by x minus 16 squared, don't forget that, I often forget it, plus 6.48. And this is our vertex form. To get the standard form, all you need to do is expand. You can expand either this vertex form here, the factored form up here. Either way, you'll get the correct standard form. So let's expand to get standard form. For standard, we expand. And so when we do that, we get Now you'll have a nicer, more organized sheet than I will, but we get, I'm going to write it in decimal point right now because the terminating decimal is 0.5. X minus 16 times x minus 16, I'm just expanding that, plus 648. And then we get y is equal to negative 0.5. I'm expanding the brackets first, so x squared minus 32x plus, so 16 times 16, 256, just square 16, plus 648. Now we can go and put the negative 0.5 in brackets there, so we have negative 0.5 x squared plus 16x minus 128 plus 648. And so that gives us an end result of negative 0, so y is equal to negative 0.5 x squared plus 16x plus 520. And so this is our standard form. Now using the equations, we can go and sketch our graph. We can use our vertex form, our standard form, and also our zeros from our factored form to help us find some key points to do that. So let's do that right now. We'll sketch our graph. You'll make a nice straight line, of course. Now we can't go up by ones, especially if we're using our zeros. In this case here, we don't really have any negative y values that we're going to use. So I think what I'll do is I'll actually make it so that I have more of my positive grid showing. And so you'll notice that we have quite a range here. I can plot my zeros for sure. I can go up by 10. So if I go up by 10, I get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. This would be 60, so 52 would be around here. So this would be one of the zeros. And then if I was going by 10, I'd go negative 10, negative 20. This is another zero over here. My vertex. My vertex is 648. So my vertex would be way up there. If I go up by 10, that's not nearly enough here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. That's not enough to cover me. So I'll have to think of a different scale that I can use in order to get my vertex there. Right now I have my two zeros plotted. You could look at plotting your 520, but again, by going up by 10, your scale won't work. So you might have to go up by a little bit more than that. So let's erase here. We might have to consider going up by maybe 30. So if we go up by 30, how many values do we have here? So let's see, we have 30 times 18 steps, 540, still not enough, 40 times 18 steps. We can go up by 40, that'll work. It'll be very, very sloppy. A graphing calculator would probably be better for this type of graph here, but we can go up by 40 and see what we get here. So if we go up by 40, we know that this is 40 over here. This would be 80. So 60 would be about here in the middle. So 52 would be about here. And that's probably a little much. If we go up by 40 again, this is 40 here. Negative 20 would be here. So these are 0. And then we want to get to 648. So we're going up by 40. So 40, 80, 120, 160, 200, 240, 280, 320, 360, 400, 440, 480, 520, 560, 600, 640, and then this would be 680 over here. So 660 would be over here. So 648 would be roughly over here. But that doesn't happen here. That happens at when x is equal to 16. This is not happening on the y coordinate. But that's where our 648 would be. We have to find x equal to 16. This goes up by 40. In the middle would be 20 over here. So a little bit less than that. So maybe about here. So more along this side here. And so here we have our vertex and our zeros, and we can connect them. And if you wanted to get your y coordinate in there, you could. Your y-intercept is 520, so again, you're going up by 40, right? So if you're going up by 40 and you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's already 200. Then another 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 400. Then another 5, this is 400. Then we can do 500 over here by going up 2, and then this would be 540 over here. So it would probably be somewhere in the middle here, so about here, 520. So there's our y-intercept, and what we can do is we can just connect those dots there, like that. And now we have our graph. So this is, you'd write the equation to label it, either the standard form or the vertex form. You can write down that this is your vertex over here, this is your y-intercept over here, these are your zeros. You'll notice that if you just jump into a problem without thinking about it, kind of like I did, you'll realize, okay, I need a better scale. And I decided to go up by 40s every time. So you would label what you were doing, and you could have probably found a better scale. I just did this very quickly off the cuff. But you would have to be thinking it through because you're doing this for the first time. So again, my strategy to see what scale I should use is I counted how many steps up I had. I decided not to use much of the negative aspect of the grid because I knew I didn't have many negative points that I was dealing with right now. We'll go into the negative eventually if you do too many decreases of your price. But the point is that right now I just need my 3 points, my zeros, my vertex. I knew my vertex would be going up because my HK was positive. So, and I also knew the problem was opening from the bottom, so I was able to do that to focus more on this positive part. I counted how many steps I had. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So I thought 18, if I have 18 steps, and I want to get to at least 648. If I did 648 divided by 18, I need to go up by about 36. So I did a little bit more than that. So you could have gone up by 36, and that might have worked actually better for you. So all I did was I did my 648 divided by my number of steps that I went up, 18, and that would tell me roughly how to divide it. So you could have done 36, 72, so on and so forth, and you could have had a better estimate in between. But I feel like this worked enough for now. To get a more accurate result, you might have to use a graphing calculator or get a better measurement of your, or get better increments. So like I said, 36 would probably be a bit of better increment for me. I would have landed at 36 at my 18 value. So I would have had, for example, 36, 7.2, and I would have kept on going up until I got to 648 over here. So again, this was some practical problems using the vertex form, standard form, and the factored form all together. We saw how to maximize revenue. If I asked you for minimum, it'd be the same idea, just this time your parabola is going dipping downwards instead, and you'd have a positive A value instead. So as you